Good evening, Groovers. And that was ABC's Viva Love. And this is Ian Henery broadcasting on Hope Radio, because Birmingham needs hope. How are you? How is 2021 shaping up for you so far? Let me tell you something. On New Year's Eve, I ordered a pizza 5 minutes before midnight. And when they arrived, I said, I ordered this a year ago. So to all my friends and you listener on Hope Radio, I wish you the best New Year ever. This is the show that says the best medicines for humans is love. Viva love. If you ask me, listener, what if it doesn't work? I would smile and say, increase the dose. Viva love. 2021, when Corona is a beer again. When Donald is only a duck. When tears sit on a cake. And when bubbles only exist in champagne. But do you know what? Life is like a box of chocolates, and the box is full of spiders, and on fire, and made of debt, and everyone else's box are better. And that's why we need a personal trainer, dental surgeon, and poet on this show. See the tenuous link in this segment with our first guest? What do I know about medicine? I'm just a poet, playwright and solicitor, but don't tell anyone that. We need a dental surgeon, and we need one now. Where are we going to get one of those, I hear you cry across the wastelands of the UK's second city, locked down in Tier 4? Well, his name is Dr. Jonathan Sean Lee, and is referred to us by friend of Hope Radio, Debbie Aldous, who has been on this show and has fingers in as many pies, including the Birmingham Creative Network. Get this, Jonathan has written 6 books, and not only is a poet and author, but he's also a personal trainer for 6 years, dental surgeon for over 20 years, which he equally enjoys. And his books were a labour of love, stemming from a time before he studied dentistry, when he was studying sports nutrition at King's College London. And the inspiration for writing them came from his personal journey from obese to lean. Jonathan, thank you for joining us on Hope Radio tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Ian.
It's so good, I almost wrote it myself. Jonathan, I'm looking forward to hearing more about your journey from obese to lean, becoming a dental surgeon, and hearing about your books and poetry. But first, please could you share your first poem with my listener?
Okay, and I would like to first of all premise by saying that a lot of the poems I've written are quite dark. So just prepare yourself for that. The first poem I wrote is a poem called Perspective, which is my personal tribute to the people around the world who have suffered and died as a direct consequence of war. So I said it is very dark. It's one of my favourite poems, to be honest. It's something that was originally inspired by an amazing book by a chap called John Perkins. It's a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And it was a bloke, he basically worked alongside the CIA for around 40 years. And in a nutshell, his job was to go around the world, find countries which were quite rich in raw materials that were, if you like, of benefit to certain governments. Minerals such as gold and fruit, oil, cotton, etc. And essentially they set up companies in these countries and essentially steal these countries of these raw materials, resulting in the countries going bankrupt and destroying their economy. And yeah, it touched me quite deeply, so I wrote this poem. So the poem is called Perspective. Okay, so here we go. So you go home to watch TV. You switch it on, what do you see? Self-righteous angst on ITV. EastEnders on the BBC. You switch it off, time to reflect on poor souls that we do neglect. Look over to the other side, wherein self-sympathy subsides, and sadness fills your eyes with tears, bears witness to your darkest fears. Your world goes black when your eyes close. Forgive me for feeling morose. Just pause a moment to reflect on the poor souls we do neglect. Those victims of war, living poor, their screams of pain still go ignored. No counselling, no food or wine, no house to live in or to dine. No clothes, no money, no pastime. No car, no fate, no phenolzine. 'Cause their pain punctures through the skin, exposing more pain from within. The putrid stench words can't describe, but pays the price for corporate brides. The evilness we fail to see, the pain, heartache and misery, from bribes to foreign policy, corruption, lies, hypocrisy. In this brainwashed democracy, you give your bit to charity, awaiting for a fantasy that won't erase insolvency. But this journey is just beginning. This is how the poor are living. Exploited with no commission, slaughtered, killed by politicians. There's no end, no intermission. It's just a trend, there's no just reason to amend for so-called treason against corporate whores and demons, more ongoing freedom missions. We shout no, but they don't listen, start more wars without permission. It's just another expedition to starve the poor with malnutrition and feed the rich without contrition. And 9/11's all you hear, it's used to justify more fair. But choosing fair means no more love, no rest, no peace, no more white doves. To sadness, anger, ignorance, more murder, more indifference, more fighting war, more racism, more ganging up on more Muslims. Living fair, afraid of living, unaware what you're becoming, now another corporate victim, brainwashed by their corporate system. Spreading lies through television, like the war on terrorism, once we start asking more questions to those corrupt politicians about wars in oil-rich nations and military interventions. They respond with more distractions, focusing on Kim Kardashian, Kanye and One Direction. Greed and power is the reason. Once you understand the system, then you'll understand their vision. But there is one and only mission, to achieve world domination. Well, I hate to preach or condescend, but that's my take on life, my friend. Unless you love right to the end, on happiness you can't depend. Life's black and white with shades of grey. Just learn to love in every way. Then overnight as clear as day, you'll feel more love coming your way. Then happiness will soon follow with a soul no longer hollow. Hopefully you'll see the light and then do what you know is right. Thank you.
Powerful words,
Thank you
Jonathan.
much. Thank you very much.
Could you share your first song with us and tell my listener why you like it? Skilo, I Wish.
Oh, I love this song. It's very nostalgic for me. Very, very nostalgic, because it actually came out when I was a student, when I was studying dentistry, and around 1995. This was before the internet was really commercial. And I remember it struck a chord with me, because I remember at the time I couldn't find it in any of the, I don't know if you remember Our Price, shops like that. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I spent ages looking for the CD so I can buy it, and I eventually found it. It's just such a catchy song. It's got a really uplifting kind of feel to it, and although me personally, I couldn't really identify it because I'm quite tall. The song is called I Wish I Was a Little Bit Taller, and I'm quite a tall person, but I could definitely identify with that feeling like a fish out of water feeling. So yeah, that's my first track, I Wish by Skilo.
Let's have it for Dr. Jonathan Sean Lee, Skilo, I Wish, here on Hope Radio.
Hello? I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and a 6'4" baller. I wish I was like 6'9" so I could get with Leoshi, cause she don't know me, but yo, she's really fine. You know, I see her all the time, everywhere I go, and even in my dreams, I can scheme a way to make her mine. Cause I know she's living fat. Her boyfriend's tall and he plays ball, so how am I gonna compete with that? Cause when it comes to playing basketball, I'm always last to be picked, and in some cases never picked at all. So I just lean up on the wall, or sit up in the bleachers with the rest of the girls who came to watch they man ball. Dag y'all, I never understood black, why the jocks get the fly girls, and me I get the hood rats. I tell them scat, skittles, kabobble. Got hit with a bottle, was put in a hospital for talking that mess. I confess it's a shame when you living in a city that's the size of a box and nobody knows your name. Glad I came to my senses, like quick, got sick to my stomach, overcome it by thoughts of me and her together, right? So when I asked her out, she said I wasn't a type. I wish I was a little bit taller, I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and a 6'4" baller. I wish I was a little bit taller, I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and a 6'4" baller. I wish I had a brand new car. So far I got this hatchback, and everywhere I go, yo, I get laughed at. And when I'm in my car, I'm laid back. I got an 8-track and a spare tire in the back seat, but that's flat. And do you wanna know what's really whack? See, I can't even get a date, so what you think of that? I heard that prom night is a bomb night with a hood ratchet and no type, but really though, Figaro, when in my car, I can't even get a hello. Well, so many people wanna cruise Crenshaw on Sunday. One day I'ma have to get in my car and go. You know, I take the 110 to the 105. Get off on Crenshaw, tell my homies look alive. Cause it's hard to survive when you're living in the concrete jungles and these girls keep passing me by. She looks fly. Make me say, my. I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat, a 6'4" baller. I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat, a 6'4" baller. I wish I was a little bit taller. I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. Wish I was a baller. Wish I was a little bit taller. I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. Wish I was a baller. Wish I was a little bit taller. Wish I was a baller. Wish I was a baller. Wish I was a little bit taller. I was a little bit taller. Wish I was a baller. Yeah. Hey, I wish I had my way, cause every day would be a Friday and you can even speed on the highway. I would play ghetto games, name my kids ghetto names. Little Mookie, Big Al, Lorraine. Yo, you know that's on the real. So if you down on your luck, then you should know just how I feel. Cause if you don't want me around, see I go simple, I go easy, I go Greyhound. Hey, you, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Ah, yes, ain't that fresh? Everybody wants to get down like that. Wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and a 6'4" baller. I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and a 6'4" baller.
Skilo, I wish. And this is Ian Henery, broadcasting on Hope Radio, because Birmingham needs hope. Joining me in the studio tonight with lots of social distancing is a dental surgeon from Birmingham who not only writes poetry and is a personal trainer, but he has also written 6 books on his journey from obese to lean. Jonathan, please could you share with my listener your journey? I know it's in the preface to one of your books.
Absolutely. So I grew up around the 80s. I was born in the 70s. I grew up around the 80s, and it was a time when brawn was really taking over Hollywood. You know, all the superheroes on TV, they started to look more like Arnold Schwarzenegger and less like Buck Rogers. You know, they started to look more like Sylvester Stallone and Carl Weathers and less like Flash Gordon. Going to the gym was a massive craze. And at that time, it was really cool to lift weights all of a sudden. You know, gyms started to open up left, right, and centre. And there was a film, Rocky, which I'm sure you've seen. And that was the real inspiration for me and the friends I was growing up with. And there's a really funny scene in that film when he takes 5 raw eggs, drinks 5 eggs in a glass. And we used to do that because we thought that was cool, you know. If Rocky's going to do that, then I'm going to do that. So we didn't really understand the nutritional benefit of the time. But that's the kind of era I grew up with. And the point I'm really trying to make is that going to the gym at that time was something really cool and something I wanted to do. And that's really where it all started off. I was 9 years old, so I was way too young to go to the gym. But over time, the more and more gyms were popping up left, right, and centre. And by the time I was 16, I was old enough to go to the local gym in my area. And I've been pretty much going on and off ever since. So on top of that, I've always been fascinated by the human body. I used to watch, even at a young age, I used to watch documentaries about brain surgery and things like that, which is very strange for a 12-year-old. It was always something that I enjoyed. So anyway, fast forward, I went to Guy's Hospital as a student at the age of 17 years old. I was actually the youngest student there. I was lucky to get in, to be honest, because usually it's 18 and above, but I creeped into Guy's Hospital at 17 years old as a student of dentistry, and for the first 2 years for me were pretty dark, I'm going to be honest. I didn't really fit in. I felt a bit like a fish out of water. I remember thinking to myself after 2 years, this isn't for me. And I really didn't think that I'd ever be a dentist. Also by then, by the way, I should just sidetrack, side message, that although I was still going to the gym, I gained quite a lot of weight by then. I was eating a lot of junk food. I really let myself go. I was training, but I was eating like a horse. And I actually got to around 30% body fat, which is deemed as obese. So with all that going on, I decided to take a break from dentistry, and I went to King's College London to study nutrition and medical science. I specialised in sports nutrition, and I did that for 3 years. I made some incredible contacts. I met some very well-respected, I should say met, I actually worked alongside some very well-respected professors, and I really picked their brains because I wanted to understand the fundamentals behind muscle growth and fat loss. So once I finished that, I was still going to the gym, and I became a very good friend with one of my gym buddies. And because I was going to the gym all the time, we basically did a course together and we became personal trainers. Both of us became part-time personal trainers. And I did that for a few years. I can't remember how many years, but I did it off and on as a part-time job. And it was really good because, as you know, when you're a student, you're broke. Any money that you can get would be of benefit. And I used to joke to my friends. I used to say, I can't remember the last time I saw a tomato ketchup bottle the right way up, because that's how broke we were. So any money coming in was always good. So once I finished the nutrition degree, I went back to Guy's and they accepted me to finish off my dentistry. Because I thought by then I was mature enough and I had a real long think, and I thought, you know what, I want to be a dentist now, again. I went back to Guy's after I did my nutrition degree and I finished that course off. That was around 3 years. In conclusion, I had around 8 years in university, and by the end of it, I had 2 degrees. So I had a degree in nutrition and I had a degree in dentistry. And later on, around 2010 or so, I decided to look more into nutrition because I wanted to write a book. And it's something I really did delve deeper into. I mean, there's a saying that the more you learn, the less you know. I don't know if you ever heard that saying before.
Yes, I have, yeah.
But, you know, I had that university degree in nutrition, I had the personal training experience, but I thought that was just a basic framework to my knowledge base, because there's so much more to learn. So I spent a good 4 or 5 years, from I'd say around 2009, 2010 onwards, really delving deeper into the topic of sports nutrition. I subscribed to medical journals, PubMed, Lancet. I was reading pretty much every fitness book out there. Subscribed to YouTube channels, online journals, etc., etc. And in 2016, I wrote my first book, which was Lean Gains. I later rewrote that in 2019. And over the last 6 years, I've written 6 health and fitness books, as you alluded to a bit earlier on. And that's it. That's my journey.
Brilliant. Well, what I like to do, Dr. Jonathan, is to talk about your books after the next song. But in this segment, could I mention your father before we go into your next poem?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you mentioned that you had a dark time in your life, and if you could share some words, because as I understand it, if you're okay about talking about it before we go into your next poem, it was the shock at losing your father from stomach cancer, whom you and your siblings called Superman.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason we called him Superman is because he never got sick. I mean, in all my life, we never saw him get sick. He never smoked, he never drank. He was a carpenter, so he was always active. He was always doing, moving about and stuff. And one day, out of the blue, it was around 2009, he actually started to get stomach pains. Now, this is the first time in my life I've ever seen him to be sick. And when I say sick, I mean really, really ill. He went to the doctors and they diagnosed indigestion, but later on it was actually stomach cancer. And it was very, very, very aggressive. He died within 6 months. And it was a very dark time because it just came out of the blue. And I mean, anyone who's lost someone through cancer, you know how traumatic it is. He lost a lot of weight. He wasn't eating, and he was basically dying in front of us. But it made me really look into why is it that people get cancer? Is it always because of the environmental factors like smoking, drinking, pollution, things like that? Because that's what I always used to think was the cause of cancer, but I never really paid that much attention to nutritional causes. So that's part of the reason why I wrote my second book, The Essential Guide to Sports Nutrition and Bodybuilding.
Okay, well, we'll come on to your books in a minute. Yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute, because while we were putting this show together, you shared with me about your father. You couldn't understand how it could happen to someone who led an active life,
Absolutely.
was physically strong, never smoked a cigarette in his life, and you mentioned the environmental factors, but also the dietary factors, and part of your work is to save other men, other men's fathers.
Absolutely.
So although you'd lost your dad, you were trying to save other guys' dads.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Could you tell us, please, about your next poem, Dying Thoughts?
Okay, well, as I said a bit earlier, a lot of my poems are very dark. Okay, and I wrote this during a very, very difficult time in my life. It was in my late teens, and I just lost my best friend through suicide, and it's a friend that I've known since the age of 5, so I found that really hard. So yeah, I always found I got a very good friend of mine who's also a poet, and she always used to tell me that moments of inspiration are like emails from God. When I was going through this time, I was overwhelmed with inspiration, and I just took a pen and a pad and I just wrote down all the emotions I was feeling. And it's a semi-fictional poem. It's a fictional account of a man who resorts to taking an overdose as a desperate means of ending that chronic pain of rejection, depression and loneliness which he was encountering on a daily basis. Yeah, it's called Dying Thoughts. Devils in disguise, warm souls attract, while solitude scars the remnants of healthy thoughts. Death welcomes the ego with open arms as life presents with delusions of grandeur. Judging eyes pierce as daggers mere souls expose. Screams attract dark images of self. Happiness, the new toy played by strangers. An emotion radiating from the heart like sunlight. Yet jealousy from within bears witness to the birth of anticipation, shared by the blind-sighted couple making love in the field of screams. Look on the bright side, suicide. Death lingers within my undying soul, no different to the struggling breaths of my euphoric alter ego revitalized by drugs, whose sole purpose is the pathetic attempt to provide a pleasant euthanasia to the eternal psyche. Reality presents as false hope. Dying breaths of life persist forever, as the sun scorches the anesthetized souls of those surrounding me. Ghosts seek endlessly for a place to finally wither and die, allowing them to reach their own predestined euphoria. Yet their presence is noticed only when the putrid smell of death awakes me from a coma. Love is suicide, except when experienced by others. My screams echo amongst those ancestors desperately awaiting the rebirth of a younger, happier self. Dying voices travelling in unison along the yet undiscovered narrow dark tunnel, whose destination serves as light to find. Love tortures, denial is sedation without hope. The empty box awaits entrapment of self. Those devils in disguise wave their fingers at me whilst dancing with their demonic counterparts. The resultant mutual intimacy ends in heartache for all others. Their lack of empathy scorches the remnants of my cancerous heart, dampening all monotonous beliefs. And then I finally see her, the final insult. Her passion center teasing my desire. Hope is a panacea to faithless healing, I muttered to myself, whilst finally consuming the ultimate painkiller. Hope is a panacea to faithless healing, now drifting into the final stages of the eternal cycle of consequence. My eyes now wide open, senses stronger than ever before, my existence now an illusion and nothing more. Future days no longer dampened by pointless apprehension, desolate atoms no longer remain unstable, monotony no longer an excuse for eternal love. No longer time itself an abstract concept. No more fear. I am finally here. Thank you.
Powerful words, powerful.
Thank you.
Dr. Jonathan, tell us about your next song, Angie Stone, Every Day, which is the Sully and Steph bass remix featuring Mad Snake.
Yes, actually, this is actually a song written by my brother. He produced it because he's actually a music producer. And I had the pleasure of actually meeting Angie Stone. And so, that's why I chose it.
Well, we got to play it now. Angie Stone, Every Day, the Sully and Steph bass remix featuring Mad Snake here on Hope Radio.
Come again, baby girl, because you know some big things are run this year. Mad Snake in other place, a long time I give you. Every day, special request to D-Box. It's all about style, so wicked and wild. Sully and Step on the remix.
With love, been going through things you never heard of. Breaking up, getting back together, faced with all kinds of stormy weather. There was a time I thought I'd lose my mind. My friends and family want me time after time after time to tell me how you gonna get something.
It's all about the underground sound, rhythm and bass. It's all about style, so wicked and wild.
It took of you for me to get over you. I didn't think I could make it, but my faith in God said I could check this. Back in the day, I wasn't good enough for you, but I would do anything to win you over. You took advantage of my attention. Oh, did I forget to mention? Oh, yeah, yeah. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me who's a fool. If my spouse with love been going through things you never heard of, breaking up and getting back together, faced with all kinds of stormy weather. There was a time I thought I'd lose my mind. My friends and family want me time after time. Tell me.
Every day, every day, every day, every day, every day is an mental strain. Girl, every day is a physical pain. Girl, every day, girl, you're weighing my brain. Lost and out of searching and I'm trying to maintain. Baby, check, relationship can't stay the same. Check, baby, check. Every day.
Tell me how you gonna get something when all you gave up was nothing. Tell me how you gonna get something when all you gave up was nothing. Tell me how you gonna get something when all you gave up was nothing. Tell me how you gonna get something when all you gave up was nothing. Oh, yeah, yeah. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Oh, tell me who's a fool. Tell me, 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 tell me.
Angie Stone, Every Day. The Sully and Steph bass remix featuring Mad Snake. And this is Ian Henery broadcasting on Hope Radio, because Birmingham needs hope. Joining me in the studio tonight with lots of social distancing is Birmingham dental surgeon Dr. Jonathan Sean Lee, who has written 6 books as well as being a poet. Jonathan, please could you share with my listener your eureka moment when you saw in a magazine those 5 words, "You are what you eat"?
Absolutely, yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, my dad passed away from stomach cancer, and I was always thinking to myself, it kind of made me start thinking about the common causes of cancer. And I can't really sit down and say there's a cause of cancer, but we do have risk factors. So there's things that we can essentially take or do which will reduce the chance of getting cancer, as well as other diseases like obesity, diabetes, hypertension, etc. And so I was reading an article in Lancet, actually, and it was quite an interesting article talking about the benefits of fruits and vegetables. And the title of this article was "You Are What You Eat." And for me, it just, I don't know why, but it was like a eureka moment. It just made me think about, that's really inspired me to write a book, The Essential Guide to Sports Nutrition and Bodybuilding. And essentially what I got from the article was the importance of eating fruits and more so vegetables for a number of reasons, and how fruits and vegetables can actually reduce the risk of cancer quite significantly. In fact, many foods contain beneficial compounds that reduce the risk of cancer, and vegetables in particular are quite rich in antioxidants. And if you know about antioxidants, they fight off these chemicals called free radicals. Now, free radicals, you've got to think of these mini people running around in your body with machine guns, and they're shooting off all these healthy cells, and they're called free radicals. And you tend to find them in processed foods, hydrogenated fats, anything that's artificial like trans fats, which is often found in fast food. And other things as well, like chronic stress can increase the amount of free radicals you produce, smoking obviously, alcohol, things like that. So antioxidants actually fights off these free radicals, in addition to other things like fiber, vitamins, minerals. There are these pigmented compounds called carotenoids, anthocyanins, lycopene, things like that. And you tend to find them in a lot of vegetables like broccoli, carrots, spinach, kale, berries, red cabbage, turmeric, cinnamon, etc., etc. And this can significantly, especially if you consume enough of these vegetables on a daily basis, can significantly reduce the risk of developing cancer. And there's other things as well, like regular exercise and high protein diets and things like that, which again reduce the risk of cancer and diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and all those kind of diseases.
Now, in our previous segment, you were talking about environmental factors, stress and pollution, and you were sharing that you're looking more towards dietary factors, 5 a day, and you shared with us that your father's life might have been saved if you'd eaten more fruit and vegetables. And you shared in the previous segment that if your father had exercised more and had an improved diet, he'd still be alive today. And we touched on one of your goals, which is to educate men and thereby save the lives of other people's fathers.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you could say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think, a lot of the time when we come up with solutions, we have to understand the causes. And so diet is definitely one of the biggest causes of cancer, especially stomach cancer, gastrointestinal cancer. Not only cancer, but also diabetes, hypertension, obesity, gallstones, even aging. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that if you incorporate more fruits and vegetables on a daily basis, that you can actually look younger. But more than just diet, there's exercise as well. In fact, there's a saying that if exercise was a drug, it would be the most expensive drug ever made. And the reason is because there's so many benefits to regular exercise, especially resistance training. And there's actually a condition called sarcopenia. Now, sarcopenia is the natural gradual loss of skeletal muscle or muscle that takes place over the age of 30. So when you're growing up, when you're young, we tend to lay down quite a lot of muscle as part of our development. Over the age of 30, if we don't exercise, we gradually lose that muscle. And so regular exercise, weight training especially, and a high protein diet tends to preserve that muscle. In fact, we can even grow more muscle. Now, some people say, well, what's so special about muscle? Well, muscle is the organ of longevity, and it's been known to significantly reduce cancer, diabetes, hypertension, and all those other diseases I've already mentioned. There's other things as well, like sleep. Sleep is obviously important.
Now, in the previous segments, you mentioned your own personal journey from obese to lean. Big question here, Dr. Jonathan. Yep. Did you feel that you were heading the same way as your father?
Well, my father died after I went through my journey, so I was quite obese in my early 20s, whereas my father died around 10, 15 years later. But for me personally, I do think there's a genetic component. You know, there's something called endomorph, mesomorph, and ectomorph. So endomorph is someone who tends to be more prone to gaining weight or being obese. So my dad gradually became more obese as he got older. The same with my mother and the same with my grandmother. So there's a genetic component to it. And I was starting to get quite obese. So I would say there's definitely a genetic component. But really, it was the way I was feeling. I just wasn't feeling good. I felt awful. If I'm going to be honest about it, I couldn't move around as much. I just didn't like the way I looked, and it was more of a personal reason why I decided to. I lost around 15% body fat over a 4-month period. So that was my journey.
Well, we'll talk more about your journey and your 6 books, but could you share with my listener, please, your next poem, Euphoria, for Lucinda, R.I.P.?
Yeah, this is a very melancholic love poem I wrote in memory of a lady who's no longer with us. In 1998, I became very close friends with a very beautiful African lady whilst I was studying nutrition at King's College. I developed very strong feelings for her, and I think she liked me too. Our last time together was the day before she went to Spain on holiday with 4 of her friends to celebrate their graduation. Because they all graduated. They were basically in the year above me, and they graduated. So before she left, we exchanged phone numbers, and we planned to really get together and know each other a bit better when she came back from a trip. So, long story short, weeks went by. I never heard anything from her. Tried to call her, and it went straight to voicemail. I no longer saw her around the college campus, but she did graduate, so I thought, well, maybe she's moved on. Maybe she might have met someone else. I didn't really know. I was a bit gutted at the time, but I just got on with my life. Anyway, one day out of the blue, I picked up a copy of the King's College newsletter, and it was front page, big letter. I'll never forget this. It was big letters. It said 5 students die in a Spanish hired car, and I knew right then and there that she was dead. She was 21 years old, and you know, it was one of those moments where time stood still. I know it's a bit cliche, but when I found out, I just couldn't move. I just couldn't move. It really hit me for 6. And basically, the story is that she hired a car with her friends in Spain. It was raining very heavily. They lost control. They had a head-on collision with a lorry, and all 5 of them died instantly. So I wrote this poem called Euphoria, which is basically my tribute to her. In the poem, I called her Lucinda, which I thought was quite fitting because Lucinda is actually Spanish for light. And in the poem, she's an angel. So I thought that was very fitting. But her real name is Vivian Agassi.
Could you share it with my listener, please, Jonathan?
Absolutely, yeah. Only recently have I found myself awake with a smile for having found you. An image transfixed in my mind, giving me the strength to breathe. Amidst glamour and misery, do drugs have purpose? Yet, as dry land to submarines adrift, are they of any value? For only you can sedate the pain of 1,000 arrows piercing my heart. As I gaze into the dark skies of mystery, as night falls does God present himself through the infinite display of stars. How can a boy like me sleep at night when my dreams remind me of you? Insomnia awaits, but not for long. My eyes now closed. I will soon awake from this state of euphoria, only to realize that you are no more than a dream. As my eyes close, I imagine tranquility. As my eyes open, flowers surround me, for you are like an innocent rosebud that is still blooming. I protected you during the night when death lingered, and during the day as predators attempted to feed off your undying love. When your time comes, you can't take it with you, I would say. My escape from this conscious world, an inevitable reality. Mara guides the arrow from Cupid's bow through my broken heart. Kamadeva impairs my senses with a blow to the head from her divine hammer. Madana washes away the remnants of my dying soul in a river of tears. Pathos allows me to awake from this dream. A new light, a new beginning. As dawn appears is your presence felt. Though separated by time and space, when the birds in the cloud-free sky sing out the name Lucinda, your spirit forever articulated, your love continuously embraced, your image eternally transfixed in my mind, giving me the strength to breathe, then I know I am not dreaming. Thank you.
Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. Jonathan, can you tell us about your next song, please, and why you like it? Nirvana. Dumb.
Nirvana, yeah. They're one of my favourite bands, by far, actually. They were pretty much the coolest rock band in the 90s, and I was a massive fan. This song is called Dumb. It's one of their B-sides, but I just love the unpredictable jumps in the chords. It's just a really catchy song, and yeah, one of my favourite Nirvana songs.
Tonight for Dr. Jonathan Sean Lee, Nirvana, Dumb.
I'm not like them, back in town. The sun is gone, I had a light. The day is done, and I'm having fun. I think I'm dumb, maybe just happy. Think I'm just happy. Think I'm just happy. Think I'm just happy. My heart is broke, and I have some glue. Help me inhale, mend it with you. We float around, hang out on clouds, then we'll come down. Have a hangover, have a hangover, have a hangover, have a hangover. See the sun fall asleep, wish away, souls cheap, lesson learned, wish me luck, still burn, wake me up. I'm not like them, back and pretend, the sun is gone, but I have a light, the day is done, but I'm having fun. I think I'm dumb, maybe just happy. Think I'm just happy. Think I'm just happy. Think I'm just happy. I think I'm dumb. 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 I think I'm dumb.
Nirvana, Dumb. And this is Ian Henery, broadcasting on Hope Radio, because Birmingham needs hope. This is the show that says the best medicine for humans is love. If you ask me, what if it doesn't work? I would say increase the dose. Viva love. Joining me in the studio tonight with lots of social distancing is Birmingham dental surgeon Dr. Jonathan Sean Lee. Now, check out his website, all the W's, Lean Gains, one word, because it's a story of his personal journey from obese to lean. He's got blogs there. He's got 6 books up there. It's called the Lean Gains Book Collection. Jonathan, please can you share with my listener your books? You got 6 books. Please tell my listener about them.
Okay, yeah, with pleasure. One of the most challenging books I've written was a book called The Essential Guide to Sports Nutrition and Bodybuilding. Now, this took me the best part of, I'd say, 4 years to write. And it's it's going to sound a bit arrogant of me to say this, but it's essentially the Bible of sports nutrition and exercise. It basically contains everything you need to know about losing weight, dieting, gaining muscle, feeling great, and living a long, healthy, and vibrant life. Now, this is a big book. It's 800 A4 pages. There's 260 pictures in there, and there's a little summary at the end of each chapter, just to summarize everything. Then there's Lean Gains second edition. I wrote this book. It's a smaller version of the Essentials, and it's a book mainly focusing on fat loss, muscle growth, exercise routines, and healthy eating. It's around 500 pages and around 200 pictures in there. And then I wrote an even more summarized book called How to Get the Perfect Body, which focuses mainly on the nutritional side of things. It's really for those who want to get straight to the nuts and bolts of the direct steps needed to get that ripped, athletic body without going into too much detail. Okay, so it's a book that it's quite easy on the eye, lots of pictures again, and it's a book that you could pretty much read within an hour. Okay, then there's The Ultimate Gym Workout. As the name suggests, it's a book mainly focusing on effective, tried and tested exercise routines. So there's not really that much focus on nutrition. It's more to do with how to work out, the best way to work out, and the most effective exercise regimes. You got 5-day and 3-day workouts. You got workouts for men, workouts for women, and you've also got cardio workouts and stretching routines as well. I've got the 5th book is a book called Your Pocketbook Guide to the Ultimate Gym Workout, which is basically, as the name suggests, it's a book that you can put in your back pocket. And essentially it's a condensed version of the Ultimate Gym Workout. And then my final book is called Lean Meals for Everyone. And this is a recipe book. It's an excellent adjunct to Lean Gains and How to Get the Perfect Body. There's 200, actually there's more than 200 recipes in there. Wide range of recipes to suit everyone, from vegans to meat eaters to intermittent fasters to those who are counting calories. And that's the Lean Gains book collection.
Jonathan, it's fantastically impressive. You've published 6
Thank
books.
you very much.
But my listener is going to think, nutrition and dentistry, chalk and cheese. Why dentistry?
Ooh, that's a good question.
The Ian Henery Show, where we ask good questions.
I guess I've always been fascinated with the human body. I've always loved medicine, and I come from a family of people who are very good with their hands. And I also hate hospitals. So I put all those elements together, and dentistry was kind of a good outcome for me. Plus, actually, funny enough, when I was a kid, when I was younger, my dentist would, because I originally was gearing more towards medicine, and my dentist at the time was a very good family friend, and so he kind of introduced me. He said, "You know what, Jonathan, you should go into dentistry. You know, it's more up your street." So yeah, I kind of got into it from there.
Let's have another poem, and then what I like to do is to talk to you about poetry, how you got into poetry, which poets inspire you, and we talk poetry. But first of all, let's have another poem. Your 4th poem for us tonight, Karma. Could you share with my listener the story behind writing Karma?
Yes, absolutely. Karma is a poem which revolves around the idea of what goes around comes around, hence the name Karma. It's a fictional account of a lonely man who falls in love with the woman of his dreams, actually, who he met on holiday. He ends up marrying this woman, but he's not the nicest of guys. He's got cheating eyes. He ends up cheating on her with the daughter of his best friend. And he actually ends up He happens to run into this lady on his wedding day, of all days. So in the end, it all goes pear-shaped, and he ends up losing everything. So the moral of the story is you can't have your cake and eat it, basically.
Yep, share it with my listener.
Okay, yeah. 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days now since I last saw Susanna. Was married to her 7 weeks. Last year we had a daughter. I often tell friends how we met abroad one crazy summer. We were both drunk, but when we kissed, I knew I had to have her. At 28 and 5'8", she looked just like Rihanna. You wouldn't think that was the case with a name like Susanna. But we met the year before our wedding, whilst both in Antigua, both chilling on the sandy beaches off the Falmouth harbour. I looked at her, she looked at me, at which point fate took over. Love at first sight, it felt so right, she had so much to offer. We spent all day on Half Moon Bay drinking pina coladas and mint julep, during sunset iced tea and margaritas, and Tom Collins tonic with gin and shots of caparinas, and when night came, sex on the beach, mai tais and sangrias. I had to have her to myself, through hell and through high water. I knew if I asked her right then that yes would be the answer. I asked her, will you be my wife? 2 weeks after I met her, and then took out a diamond ring and placed it round her finger. Her eyes filled up with tears. We kissed. Fast forward 1 year later. Church wedding bells and wishing wells, got married in Gibraltar. Yet ever since that day, my life's been one immense disaster, because no matter who I'm with, my cheating eyes will always wonder. Because the cycle of desire has no rules. It's just a game. Starts off with lust that leads to love, but almost always ends in pain. Like trying to sustain a spark as if it were an endless flame. But once the spark is gone, you start again until you go insane. Yes, I'm a cheat and incomplete, was married with a daughter. Well, that's not true. I've now got 2, unbeknownst to Susanna. The words I do, I wish were true, when uttered at the altar. But the truth is that I broke my vows no more than 2 weeks later. It started on my wedding day while standing at the altar. I looked right past my future wife to the bridesmaid behind her. She smiled at me, I smiled at her, and then my heart took over. She looked so good, I knew right then I had to one day have her. What's worse, I've known her all my life. She's my best friend's daughter. Aged 22 and 6'2", with face and butt to die for. And now she's grown, once all alone, we'd make great part-time lovers. Her name is Hannah, and I'll have her once I've got her number. Fast forward to the honeymoon, can't get her out my mind. I picture Hannah's face whilst with my wife sipping red wine. My will is weak, libido strong, and lust is on my mind. I know with time and some red wine that Hannah will be mine. Then once I've scored and got real bored, well then I'll draw the line. I'll just say bye and walk away and thank her for her time. I'll prove to her and all her friends that all us men are slime. But before my wife suspects the thing, I'll end it just in time. It's a honeymoon all over, coming back from New York City. And all that's on my dirty mind is Hannah's massive booty. Once we got back, I got her number from her best friend Chloe. And phoned Hannah thereafter. She agreed to meet for coffee. Just me and Hannah all alone in the prospective Whitby. For those of you who don't know, that's a pub in London City. We shared 2 bottles of red wine, a Merlot and Chianti, a vintage Barbaresco Scanavino 1980, Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blancs, Fizz highballs and martini, and finished off with whiskey and 2 more Long Island iced teas. We were eating, drinking, laughing, flirting, smiling, talking dirty. We were both drunk and wasted. Turns out that she's always liked me. By now it was 10 p.m, but we've been there since 2:30. I knew my plan was working when she moved her chair towards me and took my hand, looked in my eyes and started to seduce me. I wasn't going to spoil the mood by saying something silly. I tried to keep my cool by downing 2 more shots of whiskey. The pub now closing. Last orders! I'm starting to feel giddy. Maybe I'll just go home right now. I'm starting to feel guilty. I step back a notch. She senses that I'm starting to talk funny. I tell her, you better go. And then I call her up a taxi. But then she whispers in my ears, please come back home with me. I'm all alone at home tonight. I'd really love your company. Right then she stood up and I sat in awe of her raw beauty. She had a butt like J-Lo's and a body like Beyonce. My brain went dead right then. My brain went dead. I had to take her now. She looked so lovely. I could not believe my eyes. You see, I've never been so lucky. But this is where the drama starts. Believe me, things get ugly. And Hannah starts to act real cold once we're both in a taxi. I sense that something's wrong as she refuses to come near me. I try to kiss her. Once again she sighs and just ignores me. And then I hear my phone and it's my wife. She never calls me. But once she sends a text, I sense that she is far from happy. There's more than one. I start to read the text Susanna sent me, and then I cry a river with no body to console me. Ah, John, I love you, but you've made it clear that you're not ready. I never thought you'd break my heart, but now my heart is empty. You've made your choice. I know this well because Hannah has just texted me. I had to set you up like this, so for that, please forgive me. But for the rest, well, I'm at Hannah's, so I'll see you shortly. And please don't tip the taxi cab. He should be here already. The pennies dropped. Too shocked to talk. My brain has now awakened. I should have known that Hannah was a friggin' spawn of Satan. The taxi cab now parking outside Hannah's house in Leighton. What goes around comes back around when married with a girlfriend. I loved my wife, but had to cheat because my heart was unstable. Susanna was my soulmate, but my soul is now disabled. I gambled with a heart and then exchanged it for this fable. And now I'm eating meals for one whilst crying at the table. Well, it should come as no surprise how this sad story ends. She divorced me right away, despite my plight to make amends. After trying to get Hannah, I have since lost all my friends. 'Cause you never know when love begins, but always when it ends. 'Cause the cycle of desire has no rules, it's just a game. Starts off with lust that leads to love, but almost always ends in pain. Like trying to sustain a spark as if it were an endless flame. But once the spark is gone, you start again until you go insane. Thank you.
Powerful stuff, quite a drama there. Dr. Jonathan, can you tell my listener about two songs we're now going to play back to back and why you like them? Four Heroes, Les Fleurs, and Emilio Torini, Easy.
Ah, yes. Well, actually, Le Fleur was originally a song by Minnie Riperton from the album Come to My Garden. It's a 70s album, and you might remember her from the hit that she did called Loving You. Have you heard of that song?
Loving You is easy because you're beautiful, yeah, Jonathan.
Absolutely. And I always loved her voice. It's just such an amazing vocal range, and she can hit a super soprano like no one else. And what I loved about the Four Heroes, they did a remix of it, and because I'll be honest, I wasn't really a big fan of the original, but Four Heroes, they reproduced it, they remixed it, and they added this other vocalist called, I think it was Kareen Anderson, I think her name is, and just added a lot more life to the song without ruining it. Because a lot of the time you find remixes, sometimes they tend to ruin this original. But I really like this version. And then Easy, Emiliano Torini is an artist from Iceland. And it's quite funny because I remember the first time I heard this song, I was in a bar somewhere in London with a friend of mine. And this song came on the radio, and I fell in love with the song straight away. And it was before Shazam came out, so I had to go up to the guy at the bar and I had to find out who sang it. I really loved this. A beautiful song. It reminds me of a time when life was much easier before COVID.
Well, let's have it then for Dr. Jonathan Sean Lee, Four Heroes, Les Fleurs, and Emilio Torini, Easy, here on Hope Radio.
Will somebody wear me to the fair? Till the morning sings the lovely flower. Will a lady pin me in her hair? Will a child find me by the street? Loving in the sunny shower. Kiss my petals, weave me through a dream. For all of the simple things and much more, a flower was born.
COVID-19, especially the new variant, is spreading quickly across the country. This puts many people at risk of serious disease and is placing a lot of pressure on our NHS. Once more, we must all stay home. If it is essential to go out, remember, wash your hands, cover your face indoors, and keep your distance from others. Vaccines give clear hope for the future, but for now, we must all stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
It's not an accident. You meant to touch me, and that's exactly why I'm here. A trick of confidence, 20 years inside. You're exactly what I need. But I don't have time to play, so put your toys away. Don't take it easy. Why should we take it easy? Should we take it easy? I break into the park with the insects, striking up a costume ball. The light is lovely here, and the neon glow. I could never want for more. But I don't have time to play, so put your toys away. Don't take it easy. Why should we take it easy? Should we take it easy? Why should we take it easy? Should we take it easy? Gonna live like a diver in the high. Gonna live like I never die. And if I try, I might just feel connected. Gonna live like a diver in the high. Gonna live like I never die. And if I try, I might just feel connected. Don't take it easy. Easy, Gonna live like a diver in the high. Gonna live like I never die. And if I try, I might just feel.
For Heroes, Les Fleur and Emilio Torini, Easy. And this is Ian Henery broadcasting on Hope Radio, because Birmingham needs hope. Joining me in the studio tonight with lots of social distancing is Birmingham dental surgeon Dr. Jonathan Sean Lee, who has written 6 books relating to various aspects of health, fitness, fat loss, muscle growth and overall healthy living and wellness. He has a website which shows his books and his blogs, and I'll ask Jonathan to share that again with you, my listener, at the end of the show. What is incredible about his journey is that he used to be obese, but was able to successfully lose the weight and gained some muscle. But poetry, poetry. Jonathan, please can you share with my listener how you got into poetry?
Poetry. For me, poetry was really an expression of how I felt inside. It was like, I got a very good friend of mine, Jocelyn, and I've known her for around 20 years. She's actually a poet as well, and a writer. And she often told me that moments of inspiration are like emails from God, and you have to capture them. And so there were times when I would go through, usually hard times, or very depressing times, and I would feel like a flurry of emotions. And the words would just come out of me like water from a tap, and I would get a pad and a pen and I'd just write down all these words, and then I would kind of put them all together and make something from it. And that's usually how I would write poetry. So it tends to come from an authentic place. I can't write poetry without feeling a particular way. So that's really how I got into it.
Poetry came from an authentic place, like an email from up above. So you're writing poetry through pain, self-discovery, loneliness and anger. Do you, as the author of these wonderful poems, do you feel that you've managed to capture that energy and harness it in the form of your poems?
I like to think so. I mean, for me, I find that if it doesn't come from an authentic place, then it's not really poetry. But in saying that, I was inspired by artists like Johnny Cash and Zach De La Rocha. If anyone who's a fan of Rage Against the Machine, they know who I'm talking about. Those kind of people, and I feel like that added to it. 'Cause I like rap music, and to me, rap music is like poetry with a beat.
Yes.
So I sit down and I look at the lyrics. I think,
That's a poem.
I can do that.
It's a poem.
Yeah, it's a poem. Yeah. So
it's a poem set to music.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you read a lot of poems? Do poets inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, there was a poet who I actually saw on TED Talks a few weeks ago, a guy called Carl Loco, and he wrote an amazing poem about his metamorphosis from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And he was actually originally a gangster in East London, and he almost got murdered on 3 different occasions, and he basically saw the light and he came out of that life, and now he runs organizations which help people who were in gangs to kind of leave the gang, and he'll find ways of doing it. So he actually got into poetry, and he's got some amazing poetry. So I followed him for quite a while.
Now, Jonathan, you come from a creative family.
Yeah.
Do you think poetry is important as a creative tool?
I'd say it's essential, really, for me anyway. Because I think, when I was going through some dark times, I've lost people in my life, and for me it was a way of staying sane, really, to be honest with you. I think it's important if you're going through any kind of mental health or depression or anything like that. You can write letters to yourself. You can write words, write anything down on a piece of paper, and it's a way of expressing how you're feeling, and it's very, very, very therapeutic for me anyway.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that then leads into my next question, before I talk about your family, who are family musicians. The second poem that you shared with my listener, Dying Thoughts, was about your friend. A lot's been written and a lot's been said in recent times about men's mental health and how men are completely rubbish about accessing help and support and talking through their issues. You've touched on letters to yourself. Do you think poetry is an important tool for promoting men's mental health?
Yeah, I think so.
Positive mental health?
I think so, because we have this kind of image that, we're supposed to be this this macho kind of image we have, don't we? Where nothing affects us, and we're supposed to be able to overcome all obstacles, whether physical, mentally, etc. And I mean, I could say from personal experience that I've gone through a lot of depression, more so when I was younger, and it's almost like you have this facade that everything's fine, and really it's not. And bottling all that up inside can be extremely destructive. And so I can only speak from my own experience, but writing things down and also writing music, because I write music as well, and I found that really helped for me personally, and so I would imagine that it would help for other people as well.
Now, your mother taught the piano, and your elder brother was a music producer, and you shared with my listener earlier in the show that he produced Angie Stone every day.
Yeah, that's right. Could
you tell my listener a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we basically have this piano in the family home, and it's been around since the Bible was written. It's like it's the oldest thing in the house, and we have this hypnotic effect. Really, every time we walk past it, we have to bang out a tune. So my mum was a piano teacher, My granddad also taught piano, and he played the piano even when he was blind, because he ended up, before he died, he was blind, and he still played the piano. My dad played by ear. My brother, Steph, I'd say he's probably the most talented of the family. He ended up becoming a music producer and doing it professionally. And me personally, I've been playing on and off since I was around 5 years old. So I could say we're a musical family. Steph was more into producing. So he became a music producer, and he worked with people like Usher and Amy Winehouse and who else? Billy Piper, Mystique, people like that. So he did work with a few big names. But yeah, he definitely was the most talented out of all of us, I would say.
And he owned a recording studio in London?
That's right, yes. It was more prominent back in the 90s and the early part of the 2000s. But he's kind of branched out into directing now. So he does a lot of directing and computer work and things like that. But yeah, he still does the producing on the side.
Now, you shared with my listener that you play the piano as well as composing music. Is there no end to your talents, Dr. Jonathan?
That's very flattering, thank you.
What are your musical inspirations?
I have to give a shout out to Scott Joplin. Scott Joplin, for me, when I was around 9 years old, I remember hearing Maple Leaf Rag for the first time. I told myself I have to play this piece. It was an amazing piece. I don't know if anyone knows Scott Joplin. He was around in the 19th century. He died in around 1917, 1918, and he basically popularized a form of music called ragtime. If you Google Maple Leaf Rag, I'm sure you would have heard of that song.
Yeah, isn't that the sound that ice cream vans play?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. The Entertainer is probably one of the most popular of all of them.
The Entertainer. I have no idea that was a black man in the last century.
Absolutely.
When they go and get their cornetos, they don't understand the contribution of black people to popular music, ragtime.
Yeah,
ragtime, the blues, the souls, there'd be no rock, would there? Birmingham famous for rock music, but it owes its debt. And we all owe our debt to Scott Joplin. So when you're in the summer, when we're all allowed out, if you're lining up for your cornetto or your 99 or whatever, and you hear that sound, remember Scott Joplin.
Yeah, absolutely, and his parents were slaves as well. So he was one of the lucky ones because he was talented, and towards the end of slavery, you were kind of still demonized into particular groups. But because of his talent, he was able to entertain towards, white people back then. And so he basically broke the mold. I remember when I was young, when I was around 9 or 10, I tried to play Maple Leaf Rag, and if you've heard it, it's a lot of octaves. And my fingers weren't that big. I was very young. So what I used to do is I used to stretch my fingers to try to make them longer so I could reach the octave. And I almost pulled my fingers out my socket. It was like, my mum was like, "You're crazy, John, you're crazy." But I really wanted to play this, and it's just an amazing piece. So that really got me into music, and I've been playing ever since, really.
When you were growing up, was there any pressure on you to be a musician?
Absolutely. Have you ever seen that film Mo Better Blues?
No.
It's a film basically about this musician who he ends up becoming a trumpet player. It's got Denzel Washington and Wesley Snipes in it. And then in the beginning of the movie, Denzel Washington's character, he's basically playing a trumpet, and his mother won't let him go out and play with his friends. She said, "Nope, you've got to do your octaves, you've got to do your scales, arpeggios, etc., before you can go out and play with your friends." And that was me. Right. My mum being a very strict piano teacher, she'd make sure I do my scales, arpeggios before I can go out and play with my friends. And she'd lock me in a room and say, "Look, you got to do your scales, arpeggios, etc., etc." And at the time, you think, I don't want to do that. I want to go hang out with my friends. But as you get older, you appreciate it. So,
now, before we go into your next poem, Dr. Jonathan, if someone asked you to define yourself, would it be, wait for it, musician, personal trainer, author, poet, or dental surgeon?
Dental surgeon.
Yes.
That's my 9 to 5. That's my bread and butter. So yeah.
Well, we're going to talk more about that and tricks of the trade of dental surgeons.
Where can I start?
At the beginning.
Well, when you think about I'd say that dentists are probably the number one high-risk profession. And last year, when it was new, we didn't have the PPE, this is the protection. The reason it's number one is because when we use a drill, we produce something called aerosols, and the aerosols can spread the coronavirus pretty far, okay, to say the least. Like ordinarily, yeah, the coronavirus, if you breathe on somebody, obviously they can contract it. But if you're drilling a tooth, then it actually, I think, 6 times more distance it will travel. So what the World Health Organization have done, and also what the BDA, the British Dental Association, have suggested, is that we increase the length of time between appointments. So let's say, for example, that you needed a filling at 9 o'clock in the morning, then we have to wait at least an hour before we see the next appointment. So that would be, let's say, an hour between you and the next patient. And that's not only to allow the coronavirus to settle, but also we spend around half an hour cleaning the surgery after that period. So the effect it's had is that we see fewer patients, especially on the NHS, and that's obviously resulted in longer waiting lists, and it's just a lot more, I'd say, a lot more cross-infection control that we have to apply, more than normal. We spend a lot of money on PPE. It's really quite a nightmare, to be totally honest with you. And the worst thing is that we can't offer efficient services like we used to before COVID.
Okay, I'm asking here for a friend this question.
Yeah.
When we go to the hairdressers talk to us, and I'm convinced, although I can't prove it, that hairdressers actually do a degree in psychology, because they ask all sorts of questions, and I tell things to my hairdresser that I wouldn't tell to my best friend. And dentists, they talk to us as well, but the only difference between going to see your hairdresser and going to see your dentist is that when your dentist talks to you, he's got his hand in your mouth. Why? And all I can... last time I went to see my dentist in life before lockdown, all I could say was, whoa, 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 because the dentist had his hand in my mouth. Why do dentists do that? I'm asking here for a friend.
I can't speak for other dentists, but with me, and I think one thing about me is I'm quite quick, and I tend to talk to the patients before I do anything. So, I mean, 9 out of 10 of the patients I see, they're very anxious. They have some kind of dental phobia. And I find that the best way of alleviating that phobia is by talking to them beforehand. Just having a conversation, just a normal conversation, with nothing to do with teeth, just how was your day, etc., etc., etc. Building some kind of rapport with the patient. And then when it actually comes down to the nuts and bolts of the treatment, I tend to put music on in the dental surgery, and the music is very powerful. I find that as long as you don't play it's a very funny incident happened to me around 6 months ago when I was really struggling to take someone's tooth out, and Michael Jackson's song called "Can You Feel It" came.
No.
So things like that can be quite funny, but generally speaking, music helps a lot, and sometimes I think also. I would ask certain patients to bring headphones in, because there's nothing more irritating than the sound of the drill. And if they're listening to their own music with the headphones, they don't really hear it as much. So that tends to help.
Talking dentistry here tonight on Hope Radio, tricks of the trade for you, my listener, when you next go to the dentist. Exposure here on the dentistry industry. So, Jonathan, is to take patients' minds off what is going on in their mouth that you play the radio.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. And to be as quick as I can as well with the treatment.
So patients become, distracted from the procedure and instead concentrate on
I'd say it works
the radio?
99% of the time, because it's the sounds that put people off, I think, more than anything.
Do you think that dentists should take a couple of years off and do a psychology course before going into dentistry?
I'd like to think that everyone's different. I mean, a lot of it comes down to experience, and my own personal experience is that when you're a new qualified dentist, you're not as confident. I mean, me personally, I've been 20 years, so I'm quite confident. But I've worked with and I've taught a lot of people who just come out of university and they don't have that natural confidence. And sometimes that can come across. And as you can imagine, if someone's just come out of university and they want to take your tooth out, and as a patient, you can sometimes sense that. And that obviously increases the anxiety in the patient. Whereas when you're more experienced, that comes across too. And the opposite effect can come across. So I guess it can help in the early years. I think it can, but after like 20 years, you're pretty much okay. I'd say that you subconsciously give off that positive vibe, and certainly from my experience, patients tend to be more relaxed after seeing me, and I think that's come down to experience more than anything.
There you go, listener. Talking dentistry here tonight on Hope Radio. We like a public service. You're welcome. Dr. Jonathan, share with us, please, your next poem, How to Survive Your First 21 Years, Kid.
Okay, so another very dark poem. It was originally inspired by a young patient of mine whose parents were from Antigua, which is a neighbouring island to Montserrat, which is where my parents were from. And I treated him as a patient for around 5 years. I didn't really know him that well, but he seemed like a decent bloke, he didn't have the best start, but he was around 14 years old when I first met him. I don't think he had much of a father figure, and that's kind of what I sensed when I was talking to him. So I'd like to think that he looked up to me. He wanted to go to university to become a doctor, and he'd always ask me loads of questions like, what did you study? How did you stay focused? Was it difficult as a black man doing dentistry, etc.? Those kind of questions. And anyway, one day he stopped coming for checkups. Now, at the time I was seeing 30 patients a day, so I thought maybe he moved to another practice or maybe he moved location or whatever. But it turns out, according to his parents, because his parents saw me a few months later, he basically fell in with the wrong crowd. He went to London one weekend and he got involved in some altercation. He got stabbed and died the very next day, and he was only 20 years old. That really hit me for six, and I wrote this poem called How to Survive Your First 21 Years.
Can you share it with my listener?
Yeah. Be sweet, be nice, but know your limits. Try not to complain. Don't lie or run away from truth. You'll just prolong the pain. Fulfill your passions with a passion, or you'll go insane. Remember, lust comes from the heart, but love includes the brain. And try to search for good in others when your mind is clear. Be strong but meek. Don't be a geek. Don't live your life in fear. Aim for the sky. The more you try, the less you have to lose, and or be rich without much money. It's not up to me to choose. Just be a good person. Always give a helping hand. Then your time for love and joy will come to you like sea to sand. And empathize and always listen with an open mind. Good things in life involve respect and always come with time. And being angry rots the soul and eats you up inside, but love and laughter's what you need for pain and heartache to subside. We are born with intuition, but we see what we want to see. Tunnel vision blinds us all. Open up your eyes, strive to be free. And choose your friends wisely. They'll be there when you get old. A true friend is hard to find, and they're more valuable than gold. And never judge a man based solely on the way he looks, 'cause we're all the same in darkness. Not all of us are crooks. Surround yourself with decent folk, with some intelligence, but are meek enough to stay well clear of all belligerence. Dangerous is the man who entices arrogance, and wise is the man who admits to ignorance. Everyone is special in their own strange, unique way. But that's the big stuff done. But there's more stuff I'd like to say. Make sure you dress up warm in winter, or you'll catch the flu. And always use protection when you're courting someone new. And brush your teeth and comb your hair and eat your Brussels sprouts. And wear nice clothes, iron your shirts, and don't hang out with louts. And stay in school, go to the gym, and always sleep at night. And read at least one book a month whilst you're still young and bright. And think before you speak, before you send mail, text, or tweet. And if you can't be good, be careful if you choose to cheat. Don't drink and drive, don't live a lie. Don't take money from strangers. Don't bite your nails, don't beat females. Don't confuse love with danger. Don't sell your soul. Don't preach control. Don't fall out with your mother. Don't patronize or synchronize your soul to please another. Thank you.
Could you tell my listener, please, about the last song that you've chosen for us tonight? An a cappella version of Michael Jackson's Keep the Faith by Accent.
I tend to find that it really helps me when I'm going through a dark time. I love the lyrics. I love the song. So yeah, that's why I've chose Keep the Faith.
Michael Jackson's song Keep the Faith by Accent.
If you
here
call out loud, will it get inside? Through the heart of your surrender to your alibis, and you can say the words like you understand, but the power's in believing. So give yourself a chance, 'cause you can climb the highest mountain, swim the deepest sea. All you need is the will to want it and die. Little self-esteem. So keep the faith. Don't let nobody turn you around. You gotta know when it's good to go, to get your dreams up off the ground. So keep the faith, baby, yeah. Because it's just a matter of time before your confidence will win out. Believe in yourself no matter what it's gonna take. You can be a winner, but you got to keep the faith. Keep the faith. Oh. And when you think you've trust, does it lead you home to a place that you only dream of when you're all alone? And you can go by feel instead of circumstance, but the power's in believing. So give yourself a chance. I know that you can sail across the water, float across the sky high. Any road that you take will get you there if you only try. So keep the faith. Don't let nobody turn you around. You gotta know when it's good to go, to get your dreams up off the ground. So keep the faith, baby, yeah. Because it's just a matter of time before your confidence will win out. I told my brother how to do the thing right. Lift up your head and show the world you got pride. Go for what you want, don't let him get in your way. You can be a winner, but you got to keep the faith. I know that keeping the faith means to never give it up on love, but the power that love has to make it right, so keep the faith. Don't let nobody turn you around. Just keep your eyes on the prize and your feet flat on the ground. So keep the faith, because it's just a matter of time before your confidence will win out. I told my brother how to do the thing right. Lift up your head and show the world you got pride. Go for what you want, don't let him get in your way. You can be a winner, but you got to keep the faith. Keep the faith.
Accent, their version of Michael Jackson's Keep the Faith. And this is Ian Henery broadcasting on Hope Radio, because Birmingham needs hope. Last year, listener, Hope Radio staged not one but two community poems with 6 poet laureates and 72 poets from around the world, including Birmingham's very own poet laureate. Each poet was invited to send one line of poetry, which was then woven into works of true diversity and inclusivity. Our next trick is to invite people to send in 2 lines of poetry and a photograph on the theme of hope in a global pandemic, which will then be launched on Brom Community Media. Jonathan, are you up for that? Would you like to take part?
I'd love to take part. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us tonight. Did you enjoy it?
Very much. Definitely.
And will you come back again on the show?
Yeah, thank you.
Please can you give my listener details of your website where they can find out more information about your books and blogs from obese to lean?
Absolutely. So for anyone who would like to lose weight or is struggling with losing weight, gaining muscle, living a long, healthy, vibrant life, that's really what I'm all about. My website is www.leangains.co.uk.
Brilliant. And please can you tell us about your last poem for us tonight, I Dream of You by Natasha Lee.
Okay, so this poem was actually written by my sister-in-law, and it was really a poem for my mother. So she wrote it for my mother, and my mum is from a very small island in Montserrat called a very small island in the Caribbean called Montserrat. And my mother, she came down to London in the Windrush era. So basically, it's a poem about Montserrat and how one day she will go back to Montserrat.
Can you share it?
Yes. So it's called I Dream of You. As I wander through the London streets, I imagine the warmth of your sand. I can almost smell the salt upon the air as I dream of my emerald land. I come back and visit you often, and I know you wait for me. You embrace me with your balmy breeze and kiss my ankles with the sea. When I stand upon your hilly back and look out across the earth, I am greeted with memories of this place I've loved since birth. I can feel the rhythm, the thrum of life, with a volcano standing tall. Ceiling fans stir the lazy air, and I'm reminded of it all. The excited chatter amongst my friends as we played along the street. Days that felt like they'll never end as we stretched out under the heat. The taste of mango on my tongue. I dream of breadfruit and banana trees. I can smell honeysuckle drift along as I lean into the breeze. A girl with flowers in her hair smiles as I walk by. A blue-winged teal flutters overhead, a smudge of colour drifting through the sky. Fresh fish upon my plate caught early on that morning. My dad would bring his catch inside just as the island wakes up yawning. I love you, my dear Montserrat, and always we have to part. I'll be back soon, but until then, I'll carry you within my heart. Thank you.
Beautiful. Dr. Jonathan Shawnlee, thank you for joining us tonight on Hope Radio.
Thank you for having me, Ian.
Been a pleasure. Closing words. You may think you are completely insignificant in this world, but someone drinks coffee from the favourite cup that you gave them. Someone heard a song on the radio that reminded them of you. Someone read the book that you recommended and plunged headfirst into it, and someone smiled after a hard day of work because they remembered the joke that you told them today. Someone loves themselves a little bit more because you gave them a compliment. Never think that you have no influence whatsoever. Your touch, word and good deed, which you leave behind, cannot be erased. Take care. Here's Whitesnake. We wish you well.
I'm sad to say it's time to go, but until we meet again along the road, remember this on your journey home. When you hear the thunder roar, you're not alone.
My mama told me when I was